Hey everybody, this is Dylan from Ocean Alliance Project. Today we're just going to go over how we can go through a very basic workflow in Metashape. And you'll see this is of our training videos. It's definitely the most basic of the training videos. You know, this is one where we're not incorporating any scale bars. We're not incorporating any ground control points. Instead, this is just going over the image process, how we can align those images, create a mesh, and then from that mesh create our orthomosaic. So a kind of a useful visual representation of reefs, and also, you know, if you're collecting data along these areas, just gives that kind of visual representation that better paints the biological story of the numbers that you're bringing back. So let's start going through some of this workflow. The first step in our workflow is, you know, we've already gone out, we've collected all of the images. Now, first thing we need to do is organize these images. So you see that, you know, from today at Anglers, it has its own folder and then our outplanting zone. And then you'll see in this folder, photos, is where we have all 420 something of our images. So you see just kind of going through to show where all these images are, kind of show the sequence in which they were taken. But now our first step is that we need to get these images into the Metashape workspace. So the first step that we're going to do is we're just going to add those photos, but we're not going to click add photos. We're going to click add folder. And we're just going to upload that entire folder that you saw was photos. So once we click open, that's where you'll see this pop up. Just make sure you're clicking single cameras. And then over on the right side, you'll see all of the images or 425 cameras. Click OK. And then on the left side in your chunk 1, that's where you're going to see it says 0 out of 425 aligned. Now that's okay because that's the next step in our process, is to align all of these photos. But you can see down at the bottom all of these images in the order in which they were taken. So our first step is that we want to align these photos. You're going to see a few different accuracies. You're going to see medium, which is the go-to, but highest obviously being taking the longest amount of time to render, lowest taking the least amount of time to render. We pick medium because it's somewhere in the middle. You're also going to make sure, at least for us, we always click estimated because this isn't in a perfect sequence. These photos, you know, we're getting tossed around by surge. There's current, and so we're just trying to estimate the alignment of these photos. So we click OK on all of that, and now you'll just let it process. And this step may take a long time depending on your computer and depending on how much processing power you have. But if you have a pretty solid computer, it shouldn't take too long. So now, once that process is completed, you'll see that we have this sparse point cloud. Basically, all of these projections, all of these points that are on this 3D plane, if we kind of really zoom into this plane, you'll see it's just a bunch of dots. Just all of these projections that it's grabbing from each of these photos, putting it on a 3D plane. And so from here, you'll see, if we kind of bring it down, you'll see all of these erroneous points that are down below the plane, above it, and this could be for a variety of reasons, but you know, it's basically just those are the low confidence points. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on model and go to gradual selection. First one we're going to do is reconstruction uncertainty, and we found that around 15, somewhere between 15 to 20 is usually the best, but you kind of just look at those erroneous points and you see as they get highlighted. The first time you do this, it may be a little bit nerve-wracking just because you are deleting a lot of points, but it's okay because those are low confidence points, and we want to build our mesh just from the high confidence. So we let all those highlighted, we delete, and now we want to optimize our cameras. So you'll see, make sure that those two boxes are checked, and then we optimize the cameras. Shouldn't take too long. But that was just the first step of 3. So we're going to go back to model, going to go back to gradual selection, and now we're going to go down and we're going to pick not projection accuracy, reprojection error. And usually for reprojection error, we try to target about half a pixel or less. 0.45 for us on this one was kind of the sweet spot. But again, you're just kind of looking at where those points, those clearly erroneous points, are getting highlighted. And this is the scariest part because you will see it deletes quite a lot of points. So we click the X, delete all of those points, and now again we will go through and optimize our camera, make sure we check those 2 boxes, and boom, now we're good to go. But that was step 2 of 3, so let's go to step 3 of 3. We're going to click model. We're going to click gradual selection again, and this time we're going to click projection accuracy. All right. You'll see I cancel out here, and that's because you want to be able to see the info. So I go here and I click model, show info. I got very confused because it said it's already showing the info. And so just to see that info, you just have to exit out of that box down there, and now you'll see all of your projections down there, 71,000. So for this next one, for projection accuracy, we're trying to target 10% of the amount of points we have. So we have 71,000 points. We're going to try and target around 7,100 of those points. So you just kind of play around with it. Again, you're also just looking at those clearly erroneous points and seeing as they're getting deleted. So highlight that, delete it, optimize our cameras again. And now our last step is you will see just a few of these clearly erroneous points. So now we're going to go through and we're going to manually delete. You can just click that rectangle tool and we can just start drawing over and highlighting the points that we know are erroneous, usually the ones that are down below the 3D plane. So just continuing to go around, clean this up, highlight some more points, and delete. Once we feel good with that, then we're going to go through one more time and we are going to optimize our cameras. This is the last time that we'll be optimizing our cameras before building the mesh. So now we're trying to build that mesh, which I like to think of as kind of like a skin over the skeleton, right? So you have all this sparse point cloud, you have all of these points, and now we're trying to put this extra layer on top of that to give us a really accurate view, kind of fill in all of these gaps and have it be something that's solid, that you can kind of look at on this 3D plane. So we're going to click Build Mesh. Here, I typically just keep it with all of the stock settings that come up. You're going to click, this part usually takes the longest, but now, so I just kind of accelerated through, and now you'll see it looks kind of blobby, right? If you were on this reef, you would look at this coral and you'd be like, it looks a bit blobby. So when going through and building your orthomosaic, if you're just looking to do, you can stop here. You can go straight through, build the orthomosaic, and it's going to give you a great view, bird's eye view of a large section of reef. In this, we're going to clean this 3D model up a little bit just to make it look a little bit nicer. Again, this step is not needed, but if you're trying to kind of show off your 3D models and stuff, you might want to add in a few textures. So you just click Build Texture. I like to just keep it, stock settings, and we're going to make sure that both of those are checked, and we're going to click OK. Now this step can also just take some time. Usually I notice it gets to the very end, and that's when it takes the longest. So we just sped through it, and now you'll see our fully finalized mesh, our finalized 3D model. For a lot of instances and for a lot of data collection, your 3D model is not really where you're getting a lot of your data from. A lot of your data comes from the orthomosaic. And so, this is a 3D model that we can drag around, and orthomosaic is a highly accurate visual representation from a bird's eye view down. So that you basically have this two-dimensional view over a large area with a quality that you wouldn't be able to achieve just by taking a photo. So always make sure you save. I honestly let this go a little bit too long before saving it, but you're just going to save it in the same folder as your outplanting zone so that you have your photos and all of your files in that folder. Now we're on to our last step. Our last step is just to build that orthomosaic. This part's pretty easy. Just click Build Orthomosaic. You just check that you're in local coordinates since we don't have any GCPs. We're not georeferencing this. So you just click Build Orthomosaic. You click OK. If you're doing a really large one, you might not be able to just do it in a normal JPEG. You might need to do a larger format. But now, as you can see, it popped out, but we're not really looking at the orthomosaic yet. You got to just go over. You can now see all of the different things that we've done. We've built our sparse point cloud. We've built our 3D models. And now you're going to see that orthomosaic pop up. If you click that, now you'll see this is a perfect two-dimensional view of everything that we're seeing. And like I was saying, it's highly accurate, right? This was roughly a 7 meter by 7 meter square. And we can get down and see individual sponges that are growing, different algae that's on here. We're using this to try and figure out what are some good outplanting zones for the restoration project out here. So we're typically on this, we're looking for solid substrate. And we can kind of see all of the areas that are solid, areas that have shifting sand. And again, it's just this good visual representation of the reef. If you care to learn more about how to do the back end, all of the Metashape stuff, we'll be continuously uploading videos to try our best to train people. I think, and if you talk to anybody that does marine conservation using orthomosaics and using 3D models, everybody will say the same thing, which is there's a huge capacity for citizen science projects. There's a huge capacity to get highly accurate data if people are just trained properly on how to do the in-field methods and how to do the back end. And what we've found is that we can train people in just a few days to be able to do all of this from start to finish with practically no knowledge of photogrammetry. And if we can train that on a large scale, there's a bunch of amazing research that can come out of it in highly diverse areas. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and stay tuned for any more photogrammetry or orthomosaic training bulletins. Mahalo nui.